Okay, welcome to Developing a Dynamite Paraprofessional Workforce. Today's webinar is focused on, as I mentioned, developing a dynamite paraprofessional workforce, and we're going to talk about strategies and best practices for setting up paraprofessionals for success and providing them with effective professional development. I'm Robin Chait, a Senior Policy Advisor at WestEd, and I'll be guiding us through today's webinar. And we also have two other speakers who will be joining us for the webinar here today. Jack Busby is the Associate Director for Educator Pathways and the Para-Educator Board at the Washington State Professional Educator Standards Board. And then Sharon Zimmern is a Program Administrator for Professional Growth and Development with the San Francisco Unified School District. So our agenda for today is we're going to start out by talking about why local education agencies struggle to recruit and retain paraprofessionals. We'll then talk through some best practices from research and experience for setting up paraprofessionals for success and providing them with effective professional development. And then we'll hear about two examples from the field. We'll hear from our two speakers who are going to provide overviews of their program, and then we'll have a conversation with them about paraprofessional development and setting up paraprofessionals for success. So why is it a challenge to recruit and retain paraprofessionals? Well, first, paraprofessionals have relatively low salaries, and studies find that paraprofessionals report feeling underpaid. And unless they want to become teachers, there are a few formal advancement opportunities for them in most districts. Their responsibilities may change, but they often aren't recognized for taking on greater responsibility or don't have more formal authority. And there are rarely opportunities for changes in their title. And many play critical roles in supporting students who need additional support. Yet, according to a number of studies and surveys, many also report feeling undervalued and underappreciated for the work that they do. Other challenges that paraprofessionals experience include that their roles are often unclear. They frequently report that their roles are unclear. And many studies find that their responsibilities are varied and wide-ranging. And they really depend on the district or the school or the position. They may provide small group instruction or one-on-one instruction or behavior support. They may supervise students. So many feel that they don't have sufficient knowledge or preparation to be effective in their specific role because it is so wide-ranging and all-encompassing. And paraprofessionals frequently don't receive formal training for their roles. Many of them learn from their colleagues on the job. But there are some strategies for setting paraprofessionals up for success. The first is to clearly define the role. Today we're going to talk about three strategies in particular: clearly defining the role, providing effective onboarding, and providing effective professional development. So as I mentioned before, we're going to start by talking about clearly defining the paraprofessional role. So clearly defining the role ensures that expectations are clear for paraprofessionals' performance and for the knowledge and the skills that they need to do their jobs well. It's helpful to outline state and district requirements in position descriptions so that only qualified applicants apply. And job descriptions should be really clear so that expectations are clear about the role and the responsibilities that the position will entail. In terms of onboarding and induction sets paraprofessionals up for success. So again, following up on the written job description, Onboarding should ensure that paraprofessionals are really clear about all of their job-related expectations and responsibilities. So some steps and components for effective onboarding include orienting them to the school site and their colleagues so that they can get to know their school community and they know who to go to for help and support. It's also important to be clear about how and when they should communicate with parents and their colleagues, and again, who they can go to for questions or support. Onboarding should also include initial training on their job responsibilities. COVID-19 raises new challenges for the role of paraprofessionals. Paraprofessionals need to know what the expectations are for their role during remote learning. So they may need a different type of onboarding during COVID-19. They may need training and support in accessing technology. They may also need information about how norms around communication with families and colleagues change during remote learning. So again, COVID-19 and remote learning may usher in some changes to the paraprofessional role and therefore changes to the onboarding and training that's needed. So research finds that many paraprofessionals don't receive professional development or coaching, but they learn on the job by observing peers. And providing effective ongoing paraprofessional development can really give paraprofessionals the tools to be more effective in their roles and make them feel more prepared and competent. This professional development should be designed based on what we know from research about effective professional development. So effective professional development should be sustained and job embedded and ongoing and related to their job responsibilities. Those are some of the key principles that we know from research about what effective professional development looks like. And then there are specific studies on professional development for paraprofessionals that find that individualized coaching and supporting paraprofessionals in applying what they have learned is another effective strategy for professional development. Professional development content should focus on the job responsibilities that the paraprofessionals will have in their roles. It may be helpful to conduct a needs assessment to determine what skills paraprofessionals have and what skills they need in their new roles in order to inform and design the professional development that will be most useful. But again, professional development should really be aligned to their roles and responsibilities and not just general in nature. Several studies have identified the specific roles of paraprofessionals and found that they provide a wide array of instructional, social, and administrative support. And so, as I mentioned before, you should design the professional development based on the roles and responsibilities paraprofessionals take on in your schools and districts. Here are some potential topics that you might want to consider. So, small group or one-on-one instruction, how to provide behavioral or emotional support to students. You might want to provide training on the clerical responsibilities they're going to be expected to perform, in addition to disability paperwork or documentation related to IEPs. And some paraprofessionals will need support in assisting with speech, physical, or occupational therapy, depending on the type of role that they have and whether they're supporting students with disabilities. A variety of contexts or structures can be effective for providing this professional development, depending on the school schedule and the needs of the paraprofessionals that you're working with. So we suggest that districts experiment with different structures to determine what works best, because some districts, we understand, may not be able to pay paraprofessionals for additional time, or some paraprofessionals may not be able to participate in sessions outside of their regular schedules. So in those situations, it might work best to find time during the school day, when they're needed a little bit less in their day job. Another idea is to poll paraprofessionals to ask them when they prefer to participate in professional development. But here are some options for considering when to provide the professional development. You can do team-based learning during your standard professional development days. You can embed it in school-wide planning efforts. Another option is summer institutes. There are some districts that include paraprofessionals in summer training. And then a number of studies have found that individualized coaching and feedback is really effective, and that can take place during the school day, right? As paraprofessionals are engaging in their daily responsibilities. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jack Busby, who's the Associate Director for Educator Pathways and the Paraeducator Board from the Washington State Professional Educator Standards Board. And he's going to provide us with an overview of the Washington Paraeducator Certificate Program, because it is one way to think about professional development for paraprofessionals.
Great. Thank you, Robin, for that introduction. I know you're trying to switch over to the flyer. So
I
while
am.
you do, I guess I'll just do a quick intro or a continuing introduction. As Robin said, I'm the Associate Director for Educator Pathways and the Paraeducator Board of the Professional Educator Standards Board. What that means is that I get to oversee the alternative routes to certification in the state, recruiting Washington teachers, which also includes the Bilingual Educator Initiative program, in essence, a teacher academy, and our newest program, which is the Paraeducator Certificate Program. Thank you, Robin, for showing the flyer. The Paraeducator Certificate Program has been structurally in place since the 2019-20 school year, but it has taken many years for it to actually become implemented. We actually started looking into implementing this program back in 2014. In 2017, a Paraeducator Board was established to oversee the implementation of this program, but to also implement minimum employment requirements, standards of practice, and a career ladder for paraeducators in the state. The Paraeducator Certificate Program, which, as I said, started during school year 2019-20, is composed of 4 different main components. They are the Fundamental Course of Study, the General Paraeducator Certificate, 2 subject matter certificates, and an advanced paraeducator certificate. What's important about the program is that the Paraeducator Certificate Program offers standards-based training for all instructional paraeducators in Washington State. It doesn't matter if they are title funded, locally funded, statewide funded. It doesn't matter if they're part-time, full-time. It doesn't matter where they are based in their practice, special education or ELL or just general. This is for all paraeducators in the state. Now, out of the components that I mentioned, only 2 of them are required for all paraeducators to receive training on. The others are optional. The 2 that are required are only required if the state funds the training to take place. During school year 2019-20, we began training paraeducators on the Fundamental Course of Study. The Fundamental Course of Study is 28 hours of training that covers the paraeducator standards of practice, and it really serves to be a foundation of training for paraeducators. Now, all paraeducators in the state, and that's about 27,000, are going through this training right now. The state of Washington made the decision that it doesn't matter if a paraeducator has been on the job for 5, 10, 15, or 20 years. Everyone is to start from ground one. So the Fundamental Course Study is being offered to everyone. It will be completed over the course of 2 years. And then after that time period is only going to be for all new paraeducators that are hired. And the 4 days, just to go into the 28 hours, just to go into a little bit of detail about what that includes. It goes into training on a variety of different topics that include technology basics, child behavior, communication practices, best practices, advanced communication best practices, and many more foundational topics that are important for paraeducators to receive training on. And the reason why all this training is taking place is because the state of Washington did an assessment and determined that paraeducators are not receiving adequate training for their role. For the most part, paraeducators were not receiving any training for their role before they were placed in front of students and interacting with students. That was seen as a real deficit for students of Washington. For that reason, this training program was created. Once the fundamental course study is complete, or once a paraeducator completes the fundamental course study, the other certificates open up, shall we say. Only the general is going to be a requirement, and that is 70 hours of training. Now, unlike the fundamental course study, which has very strict curriculum that must be met, the general paraeducator certificate is open. A paraeducator may complete any training that will assist the instructional practice of that paraeducator. Now, if it's funded, the paraeducator needs to complete all that training within 3 years of attaining the fundamental course study. Now, one thing I have not mentioned yet, when it comes to the fundamental course study and the general paraeducator certificate, these trainings are being provided by the districts themselves. It is a requirement on the district to make sure that the training takes place for the paraeducator. The reason for this is because each district has their own, they understand their local district a lot better than the state. The state made the decision that even though there are going to be set curriculum that should be met, there are still going to be areas where the district needs to insert their own curriculum to be able to best describe what is happening either in the building or at the district level. That the paraeducator, in receiving that training directly from the district, can receive much better training than something that will come down from the state. So very important to note that this is district-led training. Once the general paraeducator certificate is complete, there are the subject matter certificates, which are 20 hours each of training, and these are either in English language or in special education. These follow a very similar construct to the fundamental course of study, where there are set curriculum, standards, and learning objectives that must be met in order to attain that training. These certificates are not requirements for the paraeducator to attain, and they are also not requirements for the paraeducator to hold in order to serve in a capacity for ELL students or students who require special education. What's great about the subject matter certificates and also the advanced paraeducator certificate, these are available for paraeducators who choose to further professionalize their career with additional trainings that they may like to approach. The final one is the advanced paraeducator certificate. This, very similarly to the general certificate, is broad in scope to what the paraeducator needs to do in order to attain the certificate. We do have some focus areas, which include training on assisting high-impact classrooms, supporting specialized instruction, and mentoring other paraeducators. But as you can see, there's still a lot of training that can be done within those. The advanced, just like the subject matter certificate, is not a requirement. A goal with the advanced certificate is that it will help paraeducators who are interested in moving beyond their role as a paraeducator. It can be that first step or second step towards potentially getting their teacher certificate. Now, all these certificates are credentials, but when we're talking about certificates, we are not talking about certification. So these certificates do not lead to certification. These paraeducators are still classified staff, but we are using the term certificates to denote the type of credential that they have earned. That's a very broad overview of what the training is. Happy to go into more details, but just to close, the fundamental course study is taking place right now, last year and this year. And if the legislature funds it, the general paraeducator certificate will be beginning with school year 21-22. Thank you, Robin.
Thanks so much, Dax. So just a couple of clarifying questions. So does the state provide the curriculum for the fundamental course of study and the general paraeducator certificate, or just for the fundamental course of study?
Good question. It's just for the fundamental course of study.
And then the general paraeducator certificate training can include whatever the district determines is needed?
Whatever the district determines is needed that will assist the instructional practice of the paraeducator. What we're highly recommending districts do is invite their paraeducators into the trainings that they already provide to their teachers, because they already have the capacity to be able to provide that training to their educators. And it will also create a stronger bond between paraeducator and teacher if they are going through the same training. We see the paraeducator as a very important and strong team member in the education team in the classroom. And because of that, we think it's very important that they also receive the same training that the district might be providing.
Got it. And then for the subject matter certificates and the advanced paraeducator certificate, does the state provide the curricula for those certificates?
For the subject matter, we have provided the curriculum for those. They have very specific standards, learning objectives, and targets to be met. We actually have developed online courses for the English language and special education certificates that if a paraeducator completes them, they will meet the certificates. The advanced is very similar to the general, where it can be any training that will help them in their instructional practice within the three areas that we have listed out, which are training on assisting in high impact classrooms, supporting specialized instruction, and mentoring other paraeducators.
Got it. Just one more question. How did you determine the content for the fundamental course of study?
Yeah, so that is what was under development since 2014. So between 2014 and 2016, there was a paraeducator work group that was formed by the legislature to determine what a professional development program could look like, what standards could look like, and what a career ladder advancement could look like. That committee that was formed was made up of a bunch of different educators across Washington, paraeducators, teachers, principals, you name it. From there, they created many subgroups to go into to determine what these different certificates and the fundamental course study, what that curriculum would look like, what is very important for a paraeducator to attain and achieve in order to best support their practice in assisting students.
Mm-hmm.
All that led to a couple of reports that were created, and then from that is how the legislature decided to establish a paraeducator board that oversees all of this work, and also the minimum employment requirements, the standards, and the program.
Got it. Thank you. That's really helpful. So in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon.
So I'm Sharon Zimmerman, and I am going to talk about the Para to Teacher program, which is helping our paras move into certificated positions in SFUSD. We really see that the paraeducator is so knowledgeable about the communities of their schools. They're often from our communities. They're local. In some cases, they're even graduates of our K through 12 education institution. So we see them as a win-win. The Paraeducator Teacher Program in San Francisco has been around for over 20 plus years. I took over about 5 years ago in 2015. And we have embedded a lot of curriculum and content from our curriculum instruction departments around very specific areas that we support. So SFUSD is using the the Para to Teacher program in high need areas. And so that is special education, bilingual education, and math are STEM. We also use the Para to Teacher program to be nimble where some of our other pipeline programs can't be. So for instance, we have some tax funding for PE and art, and sometimes when we have a deficit in staffing around PE and art, this program can pick up a paraeducator or any classified staff person in SFUSD. It does say Para to Teacher program, but we took in funding about 4 years ago from the state of California, and it was open to all classified staff, so bus drivers, secretaries. So I want to make that really clear. We are open year round. I'm just going to look at the slides right now. We take applications year round. We don't have any hard deadlines. We do have those 4 areas that we're looking at, which is bilingual education, special education, STEM, and then this pivot area around needs of the district that are very unique. Right now we have a lot of world languages that are coming out in Arabic and Vietnamese, and this program can pivot to help those candidates find credential programs. Our program is not an actual, we don't have any credentials in this program. We help our participants to get into, through, and out of credential programs, partner credential programs. In some cases, they will move through that process in what we call a cohort. And so we're happy to say that we are supporting about 20% of our candidates to get a bachelor's degree, and we call that cohort 1. It takes about 4 years to the credential, so they're in the program for 4 years. And cohort 2, they have a bachelor's degree, and they need to get into a credentialing program or a graduate program, and they have a year to stay in that cohort. And then we usually map that out to 2.5 years or less to the credential. And then in cohort 3, you can actually come into the program in cohort 3. But in most cases, we take people in cohort 2, and that is depending on what credential program they chose to go to, is 1 to 2.5 years. We have our current enrollment in the program is at 42, and our max is 50. The majority of them in special education. And right now we're focusing at, like I said, we try to be nimble with this program around moderate, severe, or extensive support needs. The staffing that's underneath this is my role, part-time, actually only part-time, and then a part-time clerical staff person to support this process. Some of the biggest lift around staffing is a lot of setting up of our PD structure. Our PD structure, like I said, is connected to both our curriculum instruction and content areas around the 4 hard to staff areas: special education, STEM, and bilingual education. Literally, our coaches in the district are developing those PDs for mandatory monthly meetings. And then we are definitely supporting a robust, strong, engaging cohort model, which we get constant feedback is the sort of the glue that's keeping folks to go through the process and persist through these different cohorts. Remember, everybody is working, as mentioned before, in a somewhat underpaid capacity. A lot of people have 2 jobs. And then they're going to school at night, sometimes to finish their bachelor's degree. Sometimes they're studying to get into a university, with the entrance tests, or they're actually in a credential program. So the cohort model of coming together every month, we have separate outside meetings where people who are going through the process are explaining how what moves they made, what testing supports they used, what professor at that university was good, what admissions process looked at this university, and they're spending a lot of time actually sharing that information. They provide to us a individual learning plan, an ILP every year. So no matter how many years they're in the program, they start a new ILP, and in that ILP is how we're checking their progress. And they're supposed to be showing us evidence of meeting their own personal goals. So if they say they want to take the CSET in 3 separate subtests and they want to have it done by December, they would write that down in their ILP, show evidence for it, and then I or our clerical person would look for signs of progress. And then we only really discuss when there's areas of a lack of progress unless they bring it up to us, and they generally do in those cohort meetings. The as we're mapping to these higher education institutions, there's $4,000 in tuition and fee reimbursement. That certainly doesn't cover all of it, but it seems to provide some relief. There's obviously a lot of help around accessing the TEACH grant. These are all high staffing need areas. So if they're at an institution that provides the TEACH grant, we help them access that, as well as scholarships. The PDs are also career readiness focused, and what we use with that is the CSTPs, the California Standards for the Teaching Profession. All of our PDs are framed around how does this connect to each of the standards in the profession, and the standards are connected to induction. So when they all finish the credential program, they're going right into induction. That is one of the agreements that they agree to, that they won't wait they won't have a 5-year lapse between finishing their credential and clearing their credential in California. So they move right to induction, which again is bringing back those California standards for the teaching profession and really helping coach them through areas that they want to work with around those standards. And then in our case in San Francisco, those standards are also embedded in the evaluation. Our new teachers are evaluated up to 4 times a year, and the rubric is the California Standards for the Teaching Profession. Induction is the California Standards for the Teaching Profession, and all of our PDs are framed around the California Standards. So we're looking for that through line and looking for them to thrive when they get into the position, to really be able to advocate strongly in the evaluation process with their principal, so that they're really owning their own professional development even when they leave the program. They have plenty of access to veteran teachers, as mentioned. They actually put on these PDs, these embedded PDs, and they're also assigned a human resources liaison. So we don't want anyone to get lost in benefits. We don't want anybody to get lost in how does payroll change from when I move from classified to certificate. You know, what benefits, what are my benefits looking like? How are they changing? Making sure that they have a certificated application in before they even graduate, so that we're not going to lose them anywhere along the way. They all agree in our para-to-teacher agreement to work 4 years in the district after they earn their preliminary credential. That is and so obviously that human resources link is key to making sure that that's a smooth transition for them. I would say that the most valuable piece that we get constant feedback around for the 50 people that we support every year is they have access to each other in the cohort. They have admissions counseling, admissions support through the process of initially applying and getting into their credential programs, and then having the university recommend them for a credential all the way through that process. What might be unique is that other 0.5 of my position is I'm our university partnership liaison. And so I'm managing all of our agreements. I'm managing all of our student teaching in the district. So I think that might be a unique part about SFUSD, where we have that access to all of our partner credential institutions, so that these folks have they have the name recognition when they're in the program, the para-to-teacher program, and we can ask for conditional acceptance when there's GPA issues. We can ask for a little bit more information so that they can make a better choice about whether they should go into a credential program, should they go into the intern route, because you can stay in the para-to-teacher program, move from classified para and take on an emergency teaching position or even an intern teaching position. And all of that, there's a lot of strings that need to be pulled in that process. And so I do think that our university partners, knowing about the para-to-teacher program and knowing that we are cohorting them, and we're as a district, we're supporting these folks to make it into our teaching staff pool, is very helpful. I think that's
Great.
pretty much it.
Great. Thank you so much. How does your district use the program as a tool to encourage recruitment and retention of paraprofessionals? Because I know that that's a challenge that many districts experience.
I will often be invited to para recruitment events and have a separate table. It's definitely mentioned that if that is one of the reasons why you're taking on the para role, that there is this career ladder that you can move into. Though we know many paras are very happy in their role, in some cases they're very intentional about taking on a para role in SFUSD because they're putting a toe in the water of the whole educational career.
And how long did you say it typically takes for a paraprofessional to become a certificated teacher?
Depending on what cohort they came into, if they come in our cohort 1, which is our smallest percentage because it is a long time, could be up to 4 years. We'll take them as a junior in the bachelor degree. So that means 2 more years. And then in almost every case, our cohort 1, people never go into cohort 2. They finish all their requirements, finish their bachelor's degree, and start pretty much the next semester in cohort 3, which is that translates to they are in a credential program.
Got it. So while they're participating in the program, they're still serving in their paraprofessional responsibilities. And how do you think that the development that you provide supports them in the work that they're doing on a daily basis as a paraprofessional?
We do a lot of surveys after our PDs to ask them, how much did you know before this? How much do you know now? And what will you use specifically from learning? And we do see that they're eager to use these skills because there is some missing PD for our para educators. We do have a para institute that started 2 years ago. It's fantastic. We're starting to take them in 2 full days, providing all the same PD that we provide our teachers. So, but that's only the last couple of years, and we have a para leadership network. So we're getting there to getting where Washington's getting. But definitely, the feedback we're getting is that they are using the skills that they are learning in these PDs directly with our students, which is exactly what we want to hear. Not just developing them for the future, but developing them for the next day with our students.
Fantastic. So building on your recent response, what are some of the other initiatives that support paraprofessional development in your district?
As I mentioned, we have a para leadership network, and that is para educators who are defining what they want to know, what they need to know themselves, taking leadership in the role. That program has been around for about 3 years, and it's really exciting. The paras themselves are the leaders of that initiative, and it sounds like they could be heading towards defining what their own training needs are and informing what we call our Para Institute, which is a summer PD specifically for our para educators. So they've basically led that summer institute. Our Para Educator Institute is being led by the Para Leadership Network.
That sounds really interesting. So what does the Para Leadership Network do besides inform the professional development or identify their professional development needs?
They're listening to the entire membership, that whole classified staff. They're listening. They're taking the pulse constantly of what the needs are for para educators in SFUSD. They're creating leadership opportunities. So if you become a part of the Para Leadership Network, you might be able to identify an interest you have in the district, and then they would encourage you to go out and do an interview, create like an informational slide deck to show back to para, to the paras in the program. They cohort them. They provide, I think they provide community. I think that's probably one of the biggest things they're doing is providing community and opportunities for leadership.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Jack, would you like to talk a little bit about some of the other initiatives that you have going on in your state to support paraprofessional development?
Sure. And Sharon, I'm finding your information very interesting as well. It sounds very similar to our alternative routes that we have in our state, where just like yours within the district, it's a state level for paraeducators or other classified staff or even other individuals who are working in the building who might be interested in becoming teachers to have that pathway to doing so. To answer your question, Robin, when it comes to, I think, other state-directed initiatives, we do have other funding opportunities that are available at the state level for paraeducators or for other individuals who may be interested in becoming teachers to be able to tap into those finances. When it comes to other paraprofessional opportunities, the Paraeducator Certificate Program is really the one that we currently have in the state. It's brand new and we're expanding it quite a bit. Now, each district might have their own different initiatives, and we have heard from different districts that already had different supports that they provided to their paraeducators that maybe their neighboring districts did not. And that's something that the state was hearing and decided that we really should have something that's statewide directed training and not have these imbalances where some districts, and it very well could just be that they have more resources than others, are able to provide a lot of training opportunities to the paraeducators, whereas the neighboring ones may not be able to. So I think when it comes to it is this training opportunity is available, and then each district has many opportunities that they're able to tap into. Some of them are district funded, and some of them are relying on Title I or title funds to be able to provide the training as well, or any kind of funding opportunity that they have available.
Got it. Thank you. What are some of the lessons that you've learned from implementing both of your programs? What would you do differently if you were designing a new program from scratch?
Sure.
Do you want to go first, Jack?
Sure. Happy to. So different learning opportunities. I would say communication is probably the most important, if not one of the most important best practices and keys to success when it comes to the implementation of this program. And it's communication to all levels of the groups that you're working with. It's very important when you're working on this that you have a clear understanding between the districts or with the districts. You have a clear understanding with the unions as well, because a lot of these partnerships, in order for them to be able to advance, especially the training advance within the district, it's very much dependent on whatever kind of collective bargaining agreements may be had between the districts and their unions in order for the training to actually take place, whether that be during in-service time or if they're going to have to be using additional funding for the weekends or evening hours. So it's very important that the communication that's coming out from the state is understood from the district, the unions, any kind of regional partners. Here we have what they're called ESDs, Educational Service Districts, a regional partner for many different districts to be able to help provide professional development. And then, of course, very much so the paraeducator themselves. Paraeducators have wanted training to be able to help support students. We have met many paraeducators who've been on the job for 20 years or more and have never received state or even district-led training. This was really the first time that they're going through it. So when we started promoting that such an opportunity was coming down, it was almost as if they were starving for it. They started reaching out to us. They started looking for the different opportunities that they could have for themselves in order to be able to start advancing their own growth right away. So that was fantastic, but then it led to a bunch of confusion of what was happening and what was happening. So I would say just communication to make sure that everyone knows, and not just from the state down, but district, paraeducator, union, that very important triangle, that everyone is communicating with each other and everyone is on the same page of what the expectations are. Otherwise, I would say just make sure you provide more than enough resources to make sure that the training actually takes place. So we created initially an outline with learning objectives and standards of what must take place. But districts, especially the smaller ones, the ones with the limited resources, were really wanting a set curriculum that they could just take and then use right away. Sure, they can go ahead and do some editing here and there, but they really wanted something that was already that they could put in their hands and really just start using. Give it to a trainer or give it to a teacher, and in some cases, the principal, to go ahead and provide the training to their paraeducators. And that's something that we learned, and we went ahead and created a bunch of curriculum for districts to be able to use. And then I would say the last one is make sure that the training is meaningful training. It's so easy to be able to just say, oh, let's just hit the learning targets, but not actually provide very meaningful training to your paraeducators. And that's something that we have heard feedback from paraeducators themselves directly, just the variety of training that they received. Some districts who really dived into it and really wanted to make sure that they provided very direct, meaningful, and especially training that they can use right away. The paraeducators loved it. They thought it was fantastic. Many of them started using it the next day. Many of them have told us how it has really improved their practice with students, and they have given them an opportunity to look at things just in a different way that has been able to help the student, which normally, or which previously they could not do. And then we've heard from other districts who were basically just trying to do a checkbox. And many paraeducators found that that was not beneficial. And then finally, something else I just remembered would be in-person training is the best. I know it's just a general understanding, but when it really comes down to it, trying to do asynchronous learning, especially in some of the topics that we have, which are concerning cultural responsibility, diversity, and equity, it just does not work unless you're able to bring your paraeducators as a group, especially bringing paraeducators from different buildings within a district so that they can meet and network with each other and have that opportunity to have discussions with one another has been the one that has been most beneficial. Whereas trying to do something that's online and, putting aside COVID-19, but trying to do something that's online is a lot tougher because of either technology barriers, access barriers, or just not being able to have that meaningful connection that you could have if you were in the same room.
So when you say meaningful training, you mean training that's directly relevant to the work that they're doing rather than just superficial training that checks the box. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I would say it's both.
Great, thank you. So frequent communication, making sure that the districts have enough resources, providing meaningful training, and then doing in-person training when possible, if possible.
As much as possible, yeah.
Great, thank you. Sharon, do you agree with any of these lessons? Do you have others? What are your thoughts?
Communication is sort of a theme I was thinking about as far as some hard lessons that I've had the last 5 years. I would say we had to build in a self-assessment for in the application process. We had a lot of folks who thought this is what they wanted to do, but didn't really know their own supports, didn't have the supports, couldn't identify what their time availability was. So we really tried to go into that quite a bit in the application process to make sure that there was a readiness for the amount of work that was going to be ahead of them around the testing and just attending college again and working full time, and sometimes 2 jobs, as I mentioned. The other hard learning was bringing in the principal. We required that be one of their letters of reference for the program. We of course never want to, add anything else to our principal's plate. But in this case, the principal is such a pivotal person for being a partner in their process of, attending colleges, having some flexibility in their schedule. And it turned out to be a very key part of one of the bigger issues that we faced, which was when the majority of our paraeducators are in special education, and when they wanted to move into STEM, which is a specific area we're focusing, and bilingual education, which needed to be in a general education requirement, their required clinical student teacher hours was a mismatch between their job and what they needed to do to earn their credential at their universities. And we had to continually bring our principals into that early to be able to come up with a flexible schedule. And in some cases, by not bringing in our principals, we ended up with options like them having to take a leave of absence. And so we have a para shortage here that's extreme. And so we don't want to lose a single one because we're trying to help them earn a credential. And if we knew early enough, we could potentially get them in an employment situation that would better match the clinical hours that they needed to complete for their credential program. In some cases, it was moving schools if they were in elementary school, but they were getting a secondary or single subject, moving into a middle or high school. In some cases, having a principal be able to assign them a role in all science classes, all math classes, or having the ability for them to be a para in a class with predominantly Spanish or Chinese speaking students. So that bringing in the principal, having a self-assessment in the application process, and getting ahead of the requirement for student teaching so that we could not have that be yet another barrier those would be the tips that I would think about that we learned the hard way.
Great, thank you. Okay, so just one final question to end on. So both of these programs serve to professionalize paraprofessionals in one way or another. How are your initiatives part of professionalizing the paraprofessional workforce, and why is that important? Why do you think that's important? Sharon, would you like to start?
I can take a step. Our paraeducators are so valued, and they're the most ready that we can even think about as far as recruitment to be our teachers. And so what we want to do is professionalize them in their role now that SFUSD is starting to do, but we also want to make sure that we are opening up the avenue for a career lattice or a career ladder, however you want to call it. And in the case in San Francisco Unified School District, our paraeducators mirror our students much more than our certificated staff. And when we're thinking about making sure that our students have teachers that look like them in front of them as the teacher, and we value all of our educators, that we would intentionally want to change the diversity of our teacher workforce in SFUSD. And our paraeducators are embedded in their communities, as I mentioned before. They are truly attuned to the community that our students are coming from. And so I would say that is the most valuable piece that we want. And when you think about retention, who stays in an expensive town like San Francisco, it's multi-generational folks who are staying here. If your grandma lives here, you're not going to go as far if your grandma lives outside. And so we really want to sort of grow our own, and we know that our paraeducator reflect the communities and ethnic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds of our students.
Great, thank you. Jack?
I completely agree with Sharon. When we're looking at our paraeducator population, they very much so represent the diversity of the students within our districts, much more so than teachers. And when we were talking about professionalization, it's at least it's not only professionalization, but we're also talking about the retention capacity of it as well. So paraeducators, as I mentioned earlier, in the state of Washington, prior to this program, there was no state-led training. There was barely any district-led training. Being able to provide training to your paraeducators is professionalizing the role of the paraeducator. Now, there is a teacher shortage, and we very much are interested in trying to leverage the paraeducator population to seek out the role of the teacher if they so choose. But I think that's what's important, is if they choose to do so. Many paraeducators see the role of the paraeducator as their profession. They've been in it for 10, 15, 20 years. They just want to be able to serve their students in a better capacity than what they may already be doing. So the training that we're providing is that opportunity to not only receive foundational training, but there are those steps within the program to further advance their career if they so choose. And in the long run, our hope is if paraeducators receive the training that they need, they will stay in the profession a lot longer than what we're currently seeing, which has some high, which in some districts, the retention level doesn't last long after 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. And a lot of that is because they're not receiving training, and then they're put with different students who require more needs that they may not be ready to be able to support. And by being able to provide them with the training, not only is it professionalizing, it's retaining, and it does provide the career ladder.
So that's a perfect note on which to end. Both of your programs really help to build the capacity of paraprofessionals and help them to advance in their careers so that they are more likely to stay. And as Sharon mentioned, they tend to be more likely to mirror the student communities that they serve and to be more embedded in their communities. And so retention is incredibly important. So thank you so much for your time today. And I appreciate your expertise and your experience, and hopefully our districts will take something away that they can then implement going forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.